All right, so I'm Jacob Scott. I'm a graduating senior here at Nichols. I'm an entrepreneurial concentration. Say that 5 times fast. I am from Yazoo City, Mississippi, and I have a background. Yay! I have a background in barbecue. I'm the fifth generation of a barbecue sauce. My family's restaurant was started by my grandfather, picked up by my mom. We closed back in October, but we are still kicking. We are still traveling the world and feeding people barbecue. So I'm hoping today to give you a little taste of home. I am doing homemade bologna. I think bologna can typically get a bad rap, but I'm here to show you that even bologna can be beautiful. So today we are doing a beef and pork bologna. I have equal parts of pork shoulder as my fattening meat, and then I have a very lean beef. There we go. So there's a couple of techniques that are going to go into this. One is emulsification, one is how to make sausages, and then finally topping it off with sous vide. I'll cover everything as we move on. First, for my ground meat, I took a large die for a meat grinder and ran each thing through separately. Before I did that, I froze all of the parts of the meat grinder and I froze all of the meat. This helps keep everything nice and cold. We don't want any bacteria growth. And on top of that, it actually makes the machine run more efficient because the metal parts are harder, they don't warm up, and it also helps with keeping everything sanitary and not getting super hot. Now, first I'm going to combine the meat with my seasoning blend, which is milk powder, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, cayenne, and of course salt. The milk powder is going to help bring up the texture of the bologna, and then everything else is just strictly for flavor. So now that we have that nice and incorporated, we're going to run this through our food processor. Now, this step is what we call emulsification. Emulsification is whenever you take typically two liquids that don't really mix together and send them through some sort of stress. So think of a vinaigrette. That's typically oil and a little bit of vinegar. Those oil and vinegar molecules stick somewhat. They try really hard to attach to each other. That is called a temporary emulsion because at some point it's going to split. You know, if you ever leave your vinaigrette in the fridge, you go back to it and it's two separate colors. Then you have a more permanent emulsification. That's when you add some sort of protein or binder to it. Now, it's going to get a little loud. It's a lot louder when you're in the kitchens and it's real echoey and all you can hear is this go. So for like your dressings and stuff, that's going to be your more permanent emulsions. So instead of the oil and the vinegar trying to stick to each other, they're sticking to the proteins of the fat. It's much easier for them to stick onto that than each other, and so they're actually able to suspend against each other and stay. That's very similar to what's happening here. So we are combining this meat, it's two separate meats, and they're sticking together. And we're going to let this go until it is a paste. We're looking for a uniform pink color, and almost like you can't tell that there's two separate things in it. Now, for my favorite part, the fun facts of bologna. Who knew bologna could be so fun? So bologna actually, it got its start here in the U.S. from German immigrants about the 1800s, and then really shot into popularity once Oscar Mayer, the hot dog company, got a hold of it and figured out how to make their own. I believe that it really took off about post-World War II because one, it's super cheap to make, and it's something our veterans actually got used to that were stationed in Italy. So there is a region where bologna gets its name in Italy called Bologna, Italy. It is spelled the exact same, B-O-L-O-G-N-A. They have a very similar dish called mortadella. It is a emulsion as well. And instead of it being two separate meats, it is just pork. And it has pistachios and chunks of whole pork fat from a pig's neck. So ours is a little bit more uniform. It's not as fancy, if you will. It's fancy cousin from Italy. But I love it all the same. So all I did there was scrape it off the side so that way any large chunks that stuck to the side are going to get back into the middle and reincorporate with everything. Now, growing up in Mississippi, I ate a lot of bologna. I ate it more than just straight cold on a piece of white bread with some mayo. My family would, for holidays and events, we smoke a full chunk of bologna, and I'm talking a 6 to 8 pound log of bologna. We'll score it, put it on a smoke, or score it, season it, and then put it on a smoker, and it is heavenly. My grandfather referred to a stick of bologna or a chunk of bologna as a Mississippi Delta ribeye, and my father referred to it as the foie gras of luncheon meat. He's an educated man and a doctor, so that's where he gets his fancy terminology from. All right, we're looking good. So, this is the texture we are looking for. It's very uniform, it is bright pink, and it's sticking to itself. And there's no large chunks. So now we are going to put it through our sausage caser. This step is kind of important because whenever you're adding it, you have to be a little aggressive with it because all that time we just spent mixing it together just incorporated a bunch of air. And we're going to try and knock out as much air as we can because if not, our finished product is actually going to have large air bubbles in it and you don't get that uniform, nice mix that you get in your traditional bologna. All right. So we're going to push that down. Make sure we get rid of those air bubbles. Make sure it's flat. And now we are ready to make some sausage because technically bologna is part of the sausage family. So are hot dogs and whatnot, because we actually put it through a casing. Now, unlike your sausage, say your breakfast sausage and whatnot, this is going to go through a casing that is not edible. It is porous and fibrous. So it is perfect for making things such as deer sausage, summer sausage, stuff that you would want to put through a smoker because it'll hold everything, but it'll allow during the curing process for the moisture to seep out and you can get a better cook on it. I'm just wringing out any excess water so we don't have anything sitting in the bologna itself. This step can get a little tricky. I always have trouble with this when making sausage. Unlike your natural casings with your other sausages that you can eat, those are really prone to breaking and bursting while you're filling them. This one, you don't have that problem, so you can be a little bit more aggressive with it. I soaked them in water before I got here, so it's been in there for about 30 minutes, and that's to allow for it to be pliable and really soak up, or not soak up, sorry, but to allow as much bologna to go in as we can get. I forgot to say, this is pink curing salt. I added this before we got in here. Just wanted to make sure that you know what it looks like. It's bright pink. Don't eat it. It's just full of nitrates and it's really bad and high quantity of what you're eating, but here it's going to aid in the curing process. So it's going to allow its shelf life to stay up a little bit and it's going to help set the texture while it's sitting overnight. All right. Pardon me. So now we are going to push this through. Right now we're pushing out all of the air. Now that I've got a bit of resistance, I know it's going to start moving through the funnel. And there we go. And I am going to kind of keep the mindset of almost overstuffing it in this scenario because I want it to really fill in all the gaps, get out as much air as we can. Again, I cannot really stress how detrimental it is for your bologna to not have a lot of air in it. That's the wrong way. There we go. So I am pushing down and squeezing and allowing it to go through. And that might be as much bologna as I can get out of this. It's just a situation where everything else is stuck in the tube. So we have a lot there, but it's just for the material. I promise I made more bologna than this. We will not go hungry. So the best way to do this is to take some twine, tie it up as close as you can, work out the air bubbles, and so you're left with nothing but the meat. And then you're going to poke a hole on top so that way you can let excess air fall out. Because although we did a good job of getting all the air out, as it sits in a cool place like a cooler for at least 24 hours, everything is going to start to settle towards the ground. And so it needs somewhere for all the air to escape. Now, this is steak bologna. I did this yesterday. I did the exact same process. I was just able to get much more out of it. Behind me, I have a sous vide machine. So sous vide is a French technique where you will cook something in very low temperature water. I have this at 170. And it's different from poaching because you're keeping it at such a low temperature and the water is currently circulating or constantly circulating and constantly moving. Now, I would like for this to get at about 155. That'll take about 10, 15 minutes. But if y'all are like me, I'm hungry. So I have some ready. This had been cooked right before I got in here. And we are going to slice it and make sandwiches, and then we're going to eat. Oh, I forgot about the pimento cheese. I'll have to do that while the bologna is frying. So at this point, it is ready and edible. But you can smoke it, like I said earlier. There we go. It's a little bit more different than your typical bologna. They put a lot more nitrates to get it so it's able to last longer. And they're also adding artificial coloring to it. But we're not going to do that. I'm calling it artisanal bologna. Does anybody have any questions so far? Have I done a decent job of explaining?
Yeah, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
15 minutes, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. So that small one will go about 15, 30 minutes. After about the 10-minute mark, I'll start poking it with a thermometer to make sure if it's at 155 degrees. This one I cooked earlier and brought it in so that way we wouldn't have to wait that 15 minutes. Because I don't know about you, I can't sit and watch bologna cook without this. Yes, ma'am. That was raw going in there. And that one was made last night, and it was put into a cooler, and it was hanging to allow for any moisture to kind of evaporate and for it to dry out just a little bit. All right. Let's cook up some bologna. While I'm waiting for that pan to get hot, my next favorite thing from home is some good old pimento cheese. The caviar of the South, if you will. Simple. Every 4th of July, every event I've ever been to, somebody had pimento cheese, if not multiple people. So this is about 2 cups of shredded cheese. That's really up to preference. I like to use a little bit of Gouda, a little bit of cheddar, add some variety to it. A cup of mayo and about 4 ounces of cream cheese. And then a can or a jar of pimentos. I'm actually going to drain these off. We don't want a whole lot of moisture in there. We want it to be spreadable, not soup. There we go. I was a little silly thinking I could do this with a spatula. Pimento cheese was one of the things that we had at our restaurant, and I have made at least 10 pounds at a time, if not 20. And the best way to do that is just get gloves on and just get in there. I got gloves on. It's not gonna hurt nobody. My hands are washed. We're clean. We're ready to eat some pimento cheese. This is a good kind of accoutrement to any party. You can make it, and if you add a little bit more higher on the cream cheese of your ratio, you're able to form it into a ball, and then you set it out on a kind of center aisle, and then people can kind of just smear off what they want. And to keep it traditional, I will be one of the very few people in this school, in this kitchen, to use a nonstick pan. Don't quote me on this, but I feel like a nonstick pan makes my bologna taste better. I don't know if it's the nostalgia of growing up with that or what, but I know no other way. I have a friend, my mom has a friend who has sworn off bologna. His dad was part of one of these companies that makes a lot of bologna, and so part of his pay was pounds of bologna every week. And so once he went off to college, she swore, I'm never eating bologna again. And she's glad I'm not him. Yes, sir.
The casing,
Yes, sir.
using 175 degrees, if you get above the boiling and it breaks, I mean, what's the point of going at that temperature? Is there a reason?
So I have not found that. We're only doing it at that temperature because we don't really need it to get
Will that casing break at a high temp?
Not that I know of. So it is a fibrous casing, and I have heard of people smoking with that casing at about 375, or not 375, sorry, 275 to 300. So it's perfect for deer sausage, summer sausage, really anything that you need. All right. The sizzle of the bologna. Music to my ears. Every 4th of July, every Christmas. Once this is finished, it will then go into an ice bath. So once it reaches 155 degrees, we're going to immediately put it in cold water and stop the cooking. That way we preserve a nice texture, color, and it keeps our flavor going. It doesn't overcook anything and congeal the fat. You don't want that. You want a nice, even cook on it.
Is there any olive oil in this?
No, there shouldn't be any. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, can you say that one more time?
He's full of baloney.
That's a really good question. If I had to take a guess, I think it's because when people think bologna, they think of it's full of mysterious, byproducts and whatnot. But I really think that that's what makes bologna so beautiful, is it uses these, forgotten parts of the animal. And I think it's a good part of, being green and recycling. You're using the entire animal. That's where a lot of French techniques and Italian techniques come in, because they will make a lot of pâtés. We are no foie gras, liver of the goose, but I appreciate it when regions are willing to use the entirety of the animal. Now, if anybody has ever fried bologna, you know it's going to curl up on you, and we want to get a nice even crust on it. So I go in, and once it starts cooking, I'll stab it at the edges so that way it prevents it from curling. And then sometimes I'll do a little dots in the middle so it allows that steam to get out. Because what's happening there is it's thin enough that the steam is pushing it up, and of course, as it cooks, it's going to kind of curl up on you. Did you take all the bread? Oh, that's gone. So, now we're going to assemble. Easy, classic, simple. I didn't add any mayo to the bread because there's plenty of mayo in the cheese. You got your fat, you've got salt, creaminess, kind of counteract the saltiness of the bologna. Get a nice piece here. Lay it on top. Take some of that Menor cheese, as my little brother would say. I like a good healthy.
What happens to the meat that was left inside the machine?
So that'll go until it reaches 155 degrees internal. Oh, the two. So once it's cooked, I'll just remove the casing and then throw it away.
The machine.
Oh, the machine! I'm so sorry. I could take it and kind of mold it into a ball and push it through. If it was a kind of chunkier sausage, like a typical breakfast sausage, you could just remove it and then make patties. So it'd eat the exact same as like a regular sausage, but just regular circle breakfast sausage. So I hope you all enjoyed my time here talking about bologna. Hope I wasn't full of bologna, as my lovely friend back there said. Thank you all. Y'all have been wonderful.